Hey guys, today I wanted to give you a bit of a foster care update and also answer a couple more questions that I get on a fairly regular basis. Also, I know these glasses have a glare, but I wanted to wear them today, so we'll just have to get over that. Okay, so I want to start out with a little bit of a foster care update. I thought about making this its own video, but I don't want to go like too into our kids' situation. I just want to give like a general broad update, so I figured it would be best to throw this in with like a Q&A video. So if you haven't been around, I've shared most of this like on my blog previously. We have two foster kids right now. So we have R2D2, who we have had since February of last year. So we've had him for a year and 5.5 months at this point. And then his little sister came into our family this February. So she has been in our home for almost 5 months now. And I'm not sure if I got those numbers exactly right, but I think as of like middle of July, they will, like pretty much at exactly the same time, they will both have been in our home longer than they were not in our home. So I feel like that's always a big moment when you've had kids for half their lives or more than half their lives. So because we had them, I don't know, they're siblings, but yet they didn't come into care at the same time. Their files are separate in some ways. Some things could affect both of them and some things are separate. So I'm just going to kind of get into, there's kind of like 4 main options here of where things can go, and I'll kind of talk about them and what that means. So as of, let's see here, I think about this, I think April, R2D2 was in care, not our care, but care in general, for 1.5 years. And in our province, that's when they start doing long-term planning. Why it takes that long, I don't know. I know some places it's much shorter than that. But here at 18 months, that's when they start long-term planning. It's now, end of June at the time of filming this, and nothing has happened to my knowledge. But anyway, so long-term planning for him. There's kind of like 3 options on the table for this long-term planning. Some of them we'll kind of get into, but he could either become a long-term ward or what's called PSI, which is kind of like a permanent foster kid in a specific home. It's a person of sufficient interest. And this is all separate from adoption. It's kind of like 3 different levels, really. Like long-term ward, they're in foster care long-term. They could still go home. Things could still happen. You still get paid as a foster parent the same, like nothing changes there. PSI, in our province, you still get like kind of like half of the foster care wage, for lack of a better term. And you can change their name legally. You're their legal guardian, but they also could potentially still go home. And then there's adoption, which is completely permanent. I think I don't really need to describe that. People know what adoption is. All 3 of those words have been used by our social worker, but I'm not sure if really all 3 of them are on the table. Our family is all for having R2D2 stay in our home forever. So if adoption is an option and we have a say in it, we would totally go that route. She did say that she has never done a long-term wardship for kids under 6. Normally, if they're under 6, they go adoption. And if they're over 6, they go long-term ward, I think because less people want to adopt them, which I don't really think is the case, but that's a whole nother situation. So she didn't really say adoption was an option for his case. She's just said that she has not done adoptions. She's not done like long-term ward or PSI for kids under 6. So then I feel like maybe adoption is an option. I'm not even sure. And the other 2 she's going to look into. So in our province, it's kind of like a bit of a mess. Because in our province, like obviously the social workers need to get approval from their supervisors and all that, but they also need to get approval from the Indigenous band that the child is registered under if they are Indigenous. And I think like 95% of Indigenous kids in foster care in our province are Indigenous. So pretty much always they need the band's approval. And sometimes they don't like that. They don't like adoption. They like more where the parent can have an option of getting their kid back. So anyway, kind of like that whole long-term possibility for R2D2 is one option. If that does happen, that's all like going to take a very long time because nothing happens quickly in the system. The second option would be for them to go with a family member and move out of our home and live with a family member. There have been multiple times over the last 9 months where we've been told that like a family member is interested, or birth parents have put like forward the name of a family member, and nothing ever happens from that. Last I knew, there was maybe a family member, but like they hadn't heard from them. So I feel like that's maybe not like the most likely of options, but it's an option that is apparently out there. And the ministry kind of would prefer that, right? They want kids to be with family, birth family, or not even necessarily birth family, or like friends of the family kind of thing. That would be their preference, you know, other than like being with their birth parents. And then the third option would be for them to go home. At the point that I know of, yeah, I can't really go into details, but that is still on the table. So for that reason, I feel like the whole number one, long-term might happen, but I don't know if adoption would happen. So pretty much all this update is that we have no idea. Things are the way they are, and I expect them to kind of stay the same for the foreseeable future, because even if they're long-term planning, it's going to take a while. Nothing's going to change very quickly, but I wanted to like come and say like they're still here. He's over there, but you can't see him, which is good because he can't be on camera. Yeah, I wanted to do an update, but don't really have anything to update. Just there's possibilities of things. Okay, then I wanted to go into a couple of different foster care Q&A. So a question I get asked fairly frequently is, what do the kids call you? And I know different foster families have different thoughts on this. The kids call us mom and dad. If we did not have biological and like, if we did not have other children in our home who were calling us mom and dad, maybe we would have gone a different route. But it's very confusing for kids to be in a home where like all the other kids are calling you mom and dad, and do they have to call you something different? So that's part of it. And another part of it is our first placement that we had when we had two little brothers, Buzz and Woody. They called everyone mama. Every woman was mama. And so I became mama like right off the bat. And it wasn't really that meant anything special. It's just that's what women were. So that is what they call us. If there is like and we still call their birth parents like mom and dad and stuff. And if there's a transition or something, then I don't know, we might do things differently, but we haven't really had a whole lot for like transition time in our placements, so that's just what it's been. Kind of going off of that, some people want to know like, what do you get for notice for going home? Like if kids are going to go home to birth family or to other family or something. And this varies. So like I said, R2D2 and BB8, they've had like family that's interested, and so we've been told like, you know, maybe they'll go in a few weeks to this family and things don't happen. And then on the flip side, when we had Buzz and Woody, on the Tuesday of the week, we were told like, yeah, maybe they will transition home over the next while. Like we'll do day visits, and then we'll do night visits, and we'll do weekend visits, and etc. That was Tuesday, and then I think that same Tuesday the mom didn't show for a visit, and then Friday morning we got a phone call and said, I can pick them up in an hour, they're going. So sometimes you have warning and sometimes you don't, and sometimes a warning turns out to be nothing. So there's no like, there's no rule. There's nothing, I don't know, just expect everything. That's what I've learned. And then one that I really wanted to talk about is, what if you don't agree with the system? Because we thought about fostering back in our adoption process, but we just decided not to do it. And part of that was because I really struggle with the foster care system, especially in our province. I know it's not necessarily like this everywhere, but in our province, like the focus is so strongly on birth parents and birth family that they neglect the children, in my opinion. It's always like reunification with birth parents at all costs, even if this is traumatizing to the children and they end up having like psychological problems because of it. That's what I've seen, and I don't agree with that. But what really like changed my mindset when we were thinking about fostering is, it's not the kids' fault. The system is not perfect, but there's kids in the system, and it's not their fault that the system is imperfect. And I don't want to not foster and help children because I don't agree with the system. So in the end, I decided to do things contrary to the system and put the kids first. And that has been like a huge mind shift for me and has made fostering a lot easier. And then the last question I want to tackle for today is like range of acceptance. Can you choose how old, genders, all that? Yes, you can. So when we first started, we said 0 to 4, and we would take up to 2 kids because that's what we had space for. And we got our first placement and they were 2 and 3 years old. And then after they went home, we decided actually we'd like to try a little bit younger next time. So we said up to 18 months, and then we got a 17-and-a-half-month-old. They just like pushed that right up there. And going forward, I don't know if we would foster more. We did say that we didn't really want babies, but we would make an exception for R2D2 sister, and then we got his sister. So we said that after we had a baby a year ago. She was our exception to that rule. And then going forward, if we decide to continue to foster, if/when these kids go or whatever, I think we would raise the range. Part of the reason we had it the ages we did was because we wanted to keep them younger than Ephraim, and obviously he's aging, and we just realized that we really don't like the 0 to 1 stage. So I think we would like increase that in the future. But our social workers have been very flexible with just understanding like, yeah, okay, this is your range now. We'll let placement know and all that. So that's been really helpful. Okay, so that's all my Q&A for today. If you haven't seen my last Q&A, definitely go watch that. Feel free to leave questions below and I will answer them in future Q&As. And thanks for watching, guys.